Alright, hey folks, so I am making this video as a general preparation guide for Miss of Pandaria 85 to 90 leveling, and before I get into it, there's two quick things that I want to go over. One, this is not a leveling guide. I obviously make regular leveling guides. I am currently working on one, and that will be posted on my main channel either tomorrow or Monday morning. It will be done before launch. You will have that as a general, leveling route from 85 to 90 with all the usual suggestions that I have in my guides. This is not a replacement for that. And second, this is not going to be edited at all. This is just kind of an info dump of every single little thing that I am doing to prep for the expansion launch, and I don't really have that much time, so I'm just going to sit down, talk you through all of it, and hopefully something in here you find helpful. So, the main things that I want to cover in this video is pre-questing, general preparation like consumables and little gizmos and gadgets that you can use, and then a loose recommendation for what you should do the moment the servers go live, if you're planning on playing at launch, but even if you aren't, it'll still hopefully save you a little bit of time. So, pre-questing. The biggest one, which I think most people are aware of, generally, is Tol Barad. So you can see here I have a bunch of Tol Barad quests, and also I should note that obviously I'm Horde, but everything that I recommend here is doable for Alliance as well. So I'm going to pop over to Tol Barad and explain generally how this works. So obviously there's a bunch of daily quests here. They give standard experience for level 85, which I believe is 69. No joke intended, but yeah, haha, funny number. 1,000 experience. That is the usual amount for quests at this level, and all Tol Barad daily quests are exactly the same. There aren't like ones that give more, so you can look at the gold value to get a general idea. This gives 14 gold. This also gives 14 gold, even though this one's a wanted quest. And obviously this turns into experience when the expansion actually goes live. So there's a bunch of quests here on the main Tol Barad islands that you can pick up. The Alliance camp is over here, of course. Now, what's interesting about this is there are only, I think, 5 quests that you can get from this every single day, but there are different combinations of little subzones that you may get as a quest. And if you come back here day after day, you can actually get more than the usual 5 stored up, so you'll have a few extra pre-quests that you can do here. Now, obviously, I'm unfortunately making this video a little bit late, so it might be hard to get the full collection if you are only watching this now. I wanted to get this out earlier, but there was a lot of, fine-tuning and testing I wanted to make sure I had done before I published this. But even if you were missing, like, one Tol Barad quest, it's really not that big of a deal. In fact, based on my testing, I think that with the proper, perfect, quote-unquote, pre-quest setup, you actually won't even have room for every single Tol Barad quest. I think you will have to take 2 of them out. So it's actually not that big of a deal if you don't do that, though there might be some pre-quests that, for whatever reason, you can't include. We'll get to that. And then having those extra Tol Barad quests is nice. And the biggest thing for this, because in addition to all of these quests, there's also the Southern Island, which I don't think I can pull up the map from here. Whatever. You get the idea. There's a bridge going down here. And on that Southern Island, does it actually... Oh yeah, it does let me show the map. There we go. So on the Southern Island, in the center in Broadenhold, there's a bunch of daily quests, I think 12 in total, that you can pick up. Again, they all give the same exact experience values. In this case, it's just the same set of 12 all the time. It's not like the Northern Island where you can get a few extra. But what's really cool about this is when it comes to pre-quests, something that a lot of people don't really understand is they think that the only thing that matters is getting the highest experience quests available. Now, obviously, there's kind of like a slider, imaginary slider of experience related to amount of time it takes to hand in those quests. So there might be quests out there, like I would imagine the final quest of Crucible of Carnage, I think, gives more than the usual amount of experience. But going all the way out to Twilight Highlands just to turn that in is not worth it. So, when considering what quests you want to turn in as pre-quests, you need to make sure that you're optimizing for efficiency overall, not just raw experience values. And what's really good about Tol Barad is all of these quests are turned in this camp, including the ones in the Southern Island, because this guy here, at least for Horde, Petty Officer Chulak, Alliance have a similar one, he is able to receive the turn-in for every single one of the Southern Island quests. So all of the ones that you pick up over there, you don't even need to go back to that island to turn them in. You go to this camp, hand them all in, you're good to go. And the extra super awesome part about Tol Barad is there's this tabard here, Hellscream's Reach, it's Barad Wardens for Alliance. This is a bit of a bonus. It requires Honored. Now, getting Honored is really easy. It takes, like, maybe 2 days of doing dailies. So if you are watching this, like, the daily reset that I post this video, technically speaking, you could do enough dailies to get to Honored and then still have all the pre-quests stacked up by Monday. If you don't have this tabard, it's really not the end of the world. It's, like, technically a 30-second time save, but it's nice to have. And I'll just show you, if I use this, it's going to teleport me directly to this camp. But this is really, 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 really important, because not only is this a condensed area where you can turn everything in, but it also has its own method of transportation. You can also use a mage portal, I think, to get this, and there is a direct portal to Orgrimmar Stormwind, so it's not that hard to reach, but this means that any sort of travel time that would have been required to hand in these prequests is just eliminated. These are just indisputably the most efficient prequests, period, in terms of just the combination of experience and travel time. Now, before I discuss the other ones, I want to touch on a similar topic, which is Molten Front quests, because this is something that I've had a lot of discussions with people about, and I've seen other guides recommending Molten Front prequests, and I think that the reason people are doing this is either, I don't want to say they're stupid, but misguided. That's a nicer way. Either they're just very misguided, or they are, instead of testing this themselves, ripping off pre-quest guides from 2012. Because back in the original release of Mists of Pandaria, we didn't have some of these Tol Barad changes from Cataclysm Classic, and you could not get all of these Tol Barad quests. It was like, I think you could only get about half of the amount of quests that you see me here. And because of that, you would only have about, I don't know, like 15 or so quests in your quest log from that, so you could do like a 50-50 split roughly of Tol Barad and Molten Front, and in that sense, it makes sense. But if you get every Tol Barad quest, it's like around 20 to 22 in total, and that is almost your entire quest log, and as we'll discuss, there are even better quests that you can get on top of that, which means that you won't even need to get every single quest in Tol Barad. And I've seen some, like, I don't, again, either misguided or just flat out misinforming info out there saying that Molten Front quests give more than Tol Barad, and I've tested this both on live servers and then copying my character over to the beta and looking at the values, and that is just not true. There is a single Molten Front quest. There might be a second one that's like all the way at the end that I just haven't unlocked, but I have most of them unlocked on my Death Knight. And there is one Molten Front quest that gives 89,000 experience instead of the usual 69,000. All of the rest give the exact same amount as Tol Barad, and one of them that I could find even gives less. Now, obviously, you would just cut that out, but the point there is there's just zero reason to go to Molten Front. The other issue with that is it's way further out of the way. Getting to the Molten Front would require a travel time. I don't believe there is a teleport there, but even if there is, Molten Front has a few different quest turn-in points scattered around the area of Mount Hyjal, whereas, obviously for Tol Barad, because of the Southern Islands stuff being turned in at this guy, everything is in one small area, so it's just better. I really don't see why you would even bother with Molten Front. I don't know why people are even recommending that, because if you do Tol Barad, it's just not necessary at all. Maybe I'm missing something major. Somebody can feel free to let me know, but this is actually one of the big reasons for the final delay on this video, because I got into like a discussion with a few people about Molten Front dailies, and I did a bunch of research over the past day and testing on the beta and tried to see what am I missing, and I could not find anything that I'm missing. I just think people are, I don't know, misguided. Like I said, we'll leave it at that. But those are not the only prequests that you can do. The other big ones are Winter Grasp. So you have here Toppling the Towers, I'll pull it up in my log, Slay Them All, Stop the Siege, and Victory in Winter Grasp. Now, these give, how do I describe this in a way that doesn't risk it getting orbital nuked? More than usual experience. So these are very important prequests to do. Normally, it wouldn't be worth really going all the way out of your way to grab these, but they are extra good. Remember when I said there's a slider of like extra experience versus travel time? This falls heavily into the travel time is worth it for the amount of extra experience that you're getting. And most of these, 3 out of 4 of them, are very easy to complete. It would only take like 1 or 1.5 Wintergrasp completions to get them turned in. The really problematic one is toppling the towers, where you have to destroy a southern tower. And this one took me like a day and a half to actually get done, because you kind of need to get lucky. First, you need to actually get into a, I think it's, yeah, defensive match is where you're actually destroying the towers. Otherwise, it's not even possible to complete that one. So it's basically a coin flip every 3 hours. Wintergrasp, by the way, if you don't know, is on 12 PST, and then every 3 hours afterwards. So every 3-hour mark, you can queue for it. And it's open for 30 minutes after the 3-hour. So getting that tower in general can be rough, but the other problem is I don't know how to replicate it, but I've seen some exploits where people break out of the starting area and then just get halfway across the map before the timer even begins. So generally in most games I joined, already all of the siege vehicles were taken, and then it can be really hard to actually get credit for the tower because you need to damage it. The one trick that I found that I don't actually know if it works, because on the match where I actually got it, I did manage to somehow snipe a siege vehicle spot and get my tower. But I did read that Serenite bombs deal siege damage and will give you credit if you run up to a tower and tag it with a Serenite bomb as it's about to fall. To my knowledge, other explosions don't work like this. Sapper charges might, but I did not read anything suggesting that they will give you credit, but I did see a few things saying Serenite bombs give that. I also, like, vaguely remember this from Wrath Classic, but it's been so long that I don't want to say, oh yeah, for sure it works, but I read that and I'm like, yeah, I think I remember doing that back in the day, so it sounds right. Unfortunately, I didn't get to test it, but if you are really struggling to get that tower, I would recommend just buying some Serenite bombs. Obviously, if you don't have engineering, unlucky, but then just try your best to get into a tower or get into a siege vehicle and kill the tower. It's really annoying. A lot of my friends have been struggling with it and just saying fuck it, and they're just getting the other 3. But even if you don't get this one, it's still worth getting the other 3 Wintergrasp quests. And finally, there are the fishing and cooking quests. There's also a jewel crafting quest. These are in Orgrimmar or Stormwind, so I'll pop back over there and show you the general locations. And there's also the pet battle ones. Now, it's important when we're talking about pre-quests to understand that there's a separation between quests that you should turn in pretty much immediately, or I guess a better way to word this is all pre-quests should be done at one of 2 levels. You should either do them at level 85 or at level 89, because some pre-quests give a fixed amount of experience. That is Tol Barad. Also Wintergrasp. So Tol Barad and Wintergrasp give a fixed value. If you hit level 86, they will still give the exact amount of experience that they gave before. So there is no reason to wait and turn them in later. You generally want to turn them in as soon as you possibly can. Now, I'll talk later on about you might not want to literally start at Tol Barad or Wintergrasp. Especially, you definitely won't want to start at Tol Barad, because with the tabard, if you have this, you can just teleport there at any time. So as long as you teleport there somewhere before hitting 86, you do not need to start there. You might want to start at Wintergrasp, but again, I'll talk about that a little later when I discuss, like, day 1 routing and getting ahead of the crowd. But either way, these quests, at some point during the 85 to 86 process, you should be turning them in. You also, of course, need room in your quest log, so you can't just have 20 Tol Barad quests sitting there the entire journey. You will eventually run out of space. However, there are other quests that do scale with your level. So the cooking and fishing and jewel crafting quests, you can see here, this is where they're turned in for Horde, Alliance, they're also in Stormwind, and the jewel crafting one is over here, but it requires you to have jewel crafting. And the difference with these quests and the jewel crafting one is the fishing and cooking dailies require 1 skill. So you can see here, if I go to professions, I only have 1 skill point in fishing and cooking, and I'm still able to pick up and complete the quests. My skill in them does not matter whatsoever. The jewel crafting one, I believe, is like 400 to get it. So if you already have jewel crafting, you could get that, and it would be good. I do not have jewel crafting. I have blacksmithing engineering, and I will discuss this when I talk about the prep stuff, but I think pretty much everybody should be at least engineering if you care about speed leveling. It's kind of a no-brainer, but, you know, it just should go without saying that it is very good to have Engie. But yeah, jewel crafting one is an option. All 3 of those scale with level. I've never really tested the jewel crafting one. I think it works the same, but I can confirm that fishing and cooking do scale with your level, What this means is that if you turn them in at 89, you get more experience than you would if you turn them in at 85. And you should. I think, actually, I'm pretty sure if you turn them in at 85, they will give, like, less experience than a Tol Barad quest, but obviously, when you turn them in at 89, they give more experience because they have scaled up. So, you should turn these in later on down the track. And the pet battle ones are really interesting. These are a bit weird, because obviously if you don't have pet battling unlocked, you won't benefit from these, but if you have played retail WoW at all and cared about speed leveling at all, you probably already know about these. They got added in MoP, and they have been pre-quest staples literally ever since. We still use them in retail to this day. And what's really nice about these is they can be turned in anywhere. So you go to these 5 tamers specifically. Bill Buckler, Eric Davidson, Lindsay, and Old MacDonald are Alliance tamers. Dagger the Fierce is Horde. So that's another thing that may make it a little bit harder at the moment. Not everybody has Horde Alliance characters. You do need Horde Alliance characters. Dagger the Fierce is over here, and the Alliance ones are scattered across Westfall, Duskwood, Redridge, and then Bill Buckler's down in Stranglethorn. But you don't need to actually go there to turn it in. There is a script that you can run, which I will show in a second. But important note, because I have seen over the years people get confused about this a lot, it's kind of a lengthy process to actually get these unlocked. It's not just a case of going to them, beating them, and getting their daily. In order to unlock the daily quest version of these battles, you need to do the pet battle achievement for getting the, like, all of the pet tamers. You can see here, defeat all the pet tamers, and then it unlocks the daily quest. So you can see Taming Kalimdor. Once you have defeated every single one of these, which you will do as you continue through the questline, then at the end, it unlocks the ability to do Dagger the Fierce as a daily quest. What I'm not 100% sure on is if you do it on Kalimdor, if it unlocks Eastern Kingdoms, because technically, like, they're faction-based achievements, but either way, you will need to go through the entire questline to get these guys unlocked, at least the entire Eastern Kingdoms Kalimdor questline. You don't need to do all the Northrend stuff. I have, because I'm a little bit obsessed with pet battling. I've done maybe a little bit more than is needed. This is not necessarily required for prep. This is just like, I really like pet battling and I think it's fun, and so I've set it up. I've actually, on that note, I've seen some people advocating for pet battling leveling in Pandaria, and as somebody who I think I can safely say I am a pet battle fanatic, and I've gotten like a ton of level 25 pets, I actually really don't understand why people are saying that pet battling is a good way to level. I generally feel that it's just worse in every way. It gives, I think, slightly more experience than, like, a mob kill, but then at that point, just grind mobs. There's really no reason to do it, even with, like, a super fast setup. At least farming wild pets is generally not worth it, especially compared to just questing and killing mobs. So, yeah, don't think that's a good idea. I've seen some people recommending it. If you like pet battling, which I do, right, by all means, do what you want. But obviously, I'm going to talk about what I think is fastest, and I do not think that is fast, but yeah, some people might like it. It's definitely a fun way to level. I've leveled up a bunch of my characters while unlocking all this stuff. But the point being, all that to say, I know I'm getting a little bit off topic. You can see under macros, so I have this. You can copy this if you want, but the way that I got this is I just looked up the quest, and on Wowhead, there's like a comment that has this info. I'm not going to copy paste it in the video description. Like I said, literally just look up any one of these quests, and there's like a top comment on Wowhead with this exact copy paste info. That's where I got it. And then if I click this, it should, okay, it's broke. It broke. No, now it worked. Right. All right, there we go. I don't think I have auto accept. Do I have auto accept quest turned in? I do not. Yeah, so that I think should make it work properly. Right. Perfect. Yeah, that was the problem. Okay, so it does work. Awesome. And this way, you can get them set up, and then you can turn them in. Now, of course, I did this for demonstration purposes, and now I'm going to have to go and do it all again, but they're daily quests, so I will be able to do that tomorrow and still have it done for launch. I'm probably going to do something a little bit finicky, where, because if you do this on one character on your account, you can actually just have it ready on your other character. I'm probably, because I have 2 accounts that are linked, while I'm leveling up on this character, on my second character, I'm going to go around at, like, when I'm level 89, and complete the pet battles in real time. That way I can stack up more non-pet battle prequests and still have them completable on this character whenever I get to 89 and want to turn them in. And I guess on that note, they do scale, right? So you should be turning them in at 89 and not at 85. But that is like a hyper min-maxy thing that I am doing. They are still good to just pre-complete and turn in at 89 if you want to. That's, in retail, what I usually do, because in retail it would not be worth to go and, do them midway through or anything like that. But that covers, I think, most stuff. You'll notice here I have the Monk quest. This, to my knowledge, gives slightly more experience than a Tolbarad quest. Obviously, it's monks only. But, notably, the Enlightenment buff has been hotfixed to not give 20% experience from 85 to 90. So, just want to make it clear that that is not why I have this. It's just, it gives slightly more experience. I haven't actually completed it yet, but I picked it up just so I could talk about it here. And I probably will pre-complete this one before launch, because if it gives slightly more experience, then all that matters is at some point during the leveling process you need to use Zen Meditation or Zen Pilgrimage, and you most likely will do that. I guess I'm probably not going to talk about that in my guide, but it should be worth noting that Zen Pilgrimage is a very helpful tool for just transport in general. There are lots of times where you may want to take a teleport back to, let's say, Orgrimmar or something like that, and especially if you're turning in, like, your cooking and fishing stuff, you want to do this at 89. Well, how do you get back to Orgrimmar, turn this stuff in, and then resume your questing, presumably in Dread Wastes, without losing any time? Well, you could use Zen Pilgrimage, because if you Zen Pilgrimage, you teleport, you have an Orgrimmar portal that you can use to get here, and then Zen Pilgrimage Return will just snap you to whatever location you left at. So the last time I used this, I was in Tolbarad, and it takes me to the graveyard. Awesome. What's really interesting about this is that you can kind of game the spell a little bit, where after you use Zen Pilgrimage, the Zen Pilgrimage Return spell overrides it, and this lasts for a really long time. Like, I think forever. So the next time you use the spell, you will have to use the Return spell before anything. So some little tricky stuff you could do is, like, for Wintergrasp, right? I talked about you may want to start here, you may not. I'll discuss that a little bit more later, but one thing that maybe if you don't want to start in Wintergrasp for some of the reasons we'll discuss later, you can, at the start, before launch, Zen Pilgrimage out of Wintergrasp, and then just leave the Return spell sitting there, and then when you're ready to turn in your Wintergrasp quests, you use the Return spell that's just been banked up from the last use, it snaps you to the Wintergrasp graveyard, which I believe is right next to the turn-in points. I haven't tested that specifically, because that's not what I will be doing, it's just a suggestion. And then you can go turn in the quests. Like I said, it's very good for doing the cooking and fishing stuff. There's a lot of different ways that you could use this. Sometimes you could also use it if the graveyard happens to be, like, halfway across the zone, and you want to just fast travel to the graveyard. You just teleport out, teleport back, and that saves a little bit of time. So it's a very flexible spell. It's very, very hard to use properly, and it's very min-maxy, so again, not something I'll be discussing in my guide, but something that you should keep in mind. Also, I think that's kind of it for pre-quests, so now I'll talk about general prep and stuff, and some of this will have to do with what I recommend on day one, which is why I'm doing this first. The first thing that I want to mention, because it's kind of hand-in-hand with what I just got done saying, is Wormhole Generator Northrend. If I use this, and I teleport to Shalazar Basin, that is the fastest way, at least for Horde players, to get to their camp. So you can see here, Shalazar Basin. I believe for Alliance players, it might be faster to go from either Dragonblight or Northrend. I'm going to be honest, don't really play Alliance that much at this point, so I haven't thoroughly tested that. But it's, like, this would still be not that slower for Ally if you needed it. But you can see here, Glimmering Pillar over to this camp right here is definitely a shorter distance than flying all the way from Dalaran. Is it that much of a difference? No. So if you don't have the Wormhole Generator, is this like the end of the world? No. And this is also why, personally, I think I'm going to be starting in Wintergrasp. Talk about the reasons for that later. But if for whatever reason you can't, and obviously if something goes wrong that prevents you from starting in Wintergrasp, which I always like to account for every possibility, I like to have this ready, so I'm just going to keep this in the back of my head, and if something terribly goes wrong and I can't start in Wintergrasp, I will remember, okay, Shalazar Basin, fly over, and then you just pop in here, turn in your quests, you're good to go, And then, you know, if you wanted to, I think right now... yeah, so this is another thing. The NPCs will switch locations. Sometimes they're here, sometimes they are at the fortress. In which case, I think it might be slightly faster to the fortress from Dalaran, but it's like roughly equidistant. So this is potentially a time save, and I'd say you're roughly breaking even, if not. Another reason why I'll probably start in Winter Grasp, just to potentially save a bit of time. I'm not sure how to work on launch, because obviously the servers will be down. I'm pretty sure it goes to the fortress if you've won Winter Grasp. But yeah, you can see here the Alliance control it. It might be... I don't know. I'm really not sure why it's doing this. Okay, this is very strange. This is not normal Winter Grasp behavior. This zone is generally pretty buggy, though, so... hopefully it doesn't do that on launch. Most of the time, it's not doing this. Anyways. You know, what are you going to do? Sometimes this game is just very weird. What is another consumable item I could talk about? Since I need to get back to Orgrimmar, we can use Potion of Deepholm. This one's pretty nice. So this takes you to the Temple of Earth. Show it again real quick if you don't know about this one, Potion of Deepholm. And this lets you quickly access the portal, so Stormwind over there, or Orgrimmar over here. So it's basically like an extra Orgrimmar Hearthstone that has... I think, like, basically no cooldown, right? Yeah, it's like a 1-minute cooldown. So, if you don't have the Tol Barad Tabard, it's actually faster, by the way, to use Potion of Deepholm and go over here and then take the Tol Barad portal instead of trying to, like, Zen Pilgrimage teleport. This actually probably is faster, too, for turning in the fishing and cooking dailies. I'm not sure about Alliance, because I think Alliance, Horde will start in the Drag, or the Collective Shadow, I mean, down below, and that's a little bit further away from these things. Alliance, I think they start in the Mage Tower, so they're might be a bit closer to the fishing and cooking places. Not 100% sure on the exact travel time numbers, but you can see here that's one way to save a little bit of time. Some other stuff. What do I got? So there are experience banners that you could get from your guild reputation. Now, there are different achievements required to unlock this, and at this point in time, not every single guild has all these unlocked. Some of them are kind of annoying. If you're in a gigantic guild, you probably can get all 3 of these, and you will want to get all 3 of them, because it says lasts 15 minutes, 10-minute cooldown, but the way that you're going to want to use this a lot of times while leveling is you will just drop it kind of non-stop, kill whatever you're doing, like, in the zone, and then move on. So you're not going to be sitting in the same place for 15 minutes unless you're mob grinding, in which case, yeah, if you're mob grinding, you can probably just use the epic banner and benefit from that, but that applies to an extremely small subset of players, and I do not recommend mob grinding strats in my guides because it requires way more game knowledge than, like, the average player has, and especially on mega servers, any of the good spots are going to be heavily camped, so it's just never really worth it. Like, basically, people who are planning on mob grinding already know that, and they don't need my guides, so there's just no point. But one nice thing that you can do here is this is a macro that I have set up. Right-click this, and it deploys my banner. You can see it puts them on a shared 2-minute cooldown. The main one has the usual 10-minute cooldown. And I like to do this because then it automatically defaults to whatever my strongest banner is. So I'll show you the macro. This one, again, pretty easy to set up. I have the show tooltip. You don't need the show tooltip. I can't talk. Yeah, you get what I'm trying to say. And the use case is in order of the most important. So the first use is the epic one that gives 15% experience. Then I have the Standard of Unity, which is the 10%, and then finally Banner of Cooperation. So this will automatically use whatever available banner is currently off cooldown. The strongest available banner is currently off cooldown, and that is really nice to just remember to hit every so often while you're leveling. Very important to have. One neat thing you'll notice is I'm actually not currently in a guild, so that's like a BattleNet community, not an actual guild, and yet I'm still able to use this because my guild reputation is revered. You save your guild rep between different guilds. So what I did is my personal guild that I raid with doesn't have all the banners unlocked. So I'm on Fairlina. I found a random guild that does have all the banner achievements. I joined them, I bought my banners, and now I'm going to rejoin my regular guild, but I can keep the banners, and I can still use them, and as you can see, I can use them without even being in a guild, as long as my overall guild reputation is still at the recommended amount. There's also Cloak of Coordination. This, I generally wouldn't recommend using, especially since Potion of Deep Home exists, and at this point in time, generally Potion of Deep Home is just more flexible. Cloak of Coordination is good in future expansions because it takes you to the portal room, but right now, there is no portal room. It just takes you to the Cleft of Shadow, the area with a Blasted Lands portal, so it usually just ends up being slower than if you chugged a Potion of Deep Home. But I have one of these, 2-hour cooldown. If I need it, I don't know. Again, I like to put in a lot of redundancies just in case something bad happens. Consumables, general stuff. You'll see here, flasks, potions, skewer to eel. This is the agility food. Health pots, right? I'll just cover every eventuality. So I have all that stuff prepped. What else? I have, obviously, you want to have Dust of Disappearance and Tome of the Clear Mind, just in case you need to switch talents. I have Tinker's Kits if I need to switch Tinkers on the fly. I also have some shoulder enchants. I'm also, before I start leveling, I haven't bought it yet, but I'm going to buy at least like 2 of every enchant. That way, if I need to switch out gear on the fly, I can do that. I have a bunch of gems, same thing. Basically, if I get an upgrade while leveling, I don't want to have to sit there and be like, you know, are the stats worth the loss of gems and enchants? No, I'm just going to slap everything on it, replace the item, and that way I don't really need to think at all. What else? I have, oh yeah, so this is an interesting one, Dark Moon Dragon. There's a bunch of these little riding things. Yeah, I don't think Blizzard's going to patch this, so it's probably safe to discuss this one. So if you use this, it puts down a little vehicle on the ground. Something that a lot of people don't realize is that if you're riding a vehicle and you queue for a random dungeon, it won't teleport you into the dungeon. So let's say, while I'm leveling, I think it'll show me the panda dungeons. Yeah, so Stormstab Brewery, Temple of the Jade Serpent. At level 87, you unlock Mogashan Palace and Shadowpan Monastery, and you usually will want to do every dungeon at least once to get the quest experience, but there's going to be a lot of people spamming dungeons from 85 to 86. So, if you queue for a dungeon at level 87, there is a better than average chance that you are going to get into Storm Stout or Jade Serpent, which ideally you won't want to do because you'll probably have already done them by that point. But if you jump on a Carousel Dragon, you can still queue for a random dungeon. You can get the extra bonus because you always want to queue for random for that bonus experience. That makes it more time effective. And hop on here right as you're about to take the queue. You look at the nameplates of people in the dungeon. See, are they in Temple of the Jade Serpent or Stormstat Brewery? If they are, you leave the group. And because you didn't actually enter the dungeon, it doesn't count as a deserter. You'll still get put on a 15-minute timer where you can't enter dungeons, but it will be faster than the 30-minute timer. So this basically halves the amount of waiting time that you'll need to do, and it also technically saves you a little time because you don't need to zone in and out of the instance, and you know, sometimes the loading times can be bad. This just expedites the process. There are other ways to do this, but I generally like using the Carousel Dragons. I don't know 100% if this works outside of Darkmoon Faire. Right now, Darkmoon Faire is active, so I think that you can use these when Darkmoon Faire is not up. If not, whatever. It doesn't really matter that much. It's a fairly minor optimization, but just in case, I've bought these so that I can potentially use them if it works. But what else? There are... Oh yeah, for engineering stuff, I have Molly. Portable mailbox is obviously nice to have in a lot of situations. Looterang, this one's just handy. If you hit this, it automatically loots a nearby enemy, and because we have AoE looting now, this is like a 1-second cast to quickly AoE loot the entire area. If you are able to easily right-click an enemy, you don't need to worry about this, but it's nice to have, especially if an enemy dies in like a weird spot, which can sometimes happen. It always sucks to have to lose out on the quest items, so having this is just good. What else? NG gizmos in general. I have Nitro Boosts on belts. I have the Synapse Springs on gloves. I have Flex Weave Underlay on cloak. This is another nice one, Gnomish Gravity Well. So there's a few things that you can do with Gnomish Gravity Well. If I jump off a cliff, oh no, I'm gonna die. Boing. And what's really cool about this is you can just keep raising yourself in the air multiple times if you just spam it. Eventually there is a cooldown. We'll see here. Yeah, kicks in. Can use that before I hit the ground. That was my cloak. It doesn't give you a parachute normally, so be careful with that. But here's another cool thing with engineering. So I did some testing on the beta, and it seems that you can do Cataclysm crafts all the way up to 540 skill. So if I sort by has skill up, I've stopped my engineering at 524 because this still gives +4, so a single craft of this will get me up to 527 or 528. I don't know, my brain is whatever. I can't do math at the moment. But it gives me a big chunk past the 525 mark when I craft this after learning Zen Master. And this recipe works up until 535, and this one is still green up until 540. So, if you stockpile a bunch of Cataclysm mats, you can level your NG up to 540. You will still need some Ghost Iron to get 10 skill points after that, from 540 to 550. It's not a lot, though. It's, like, honestly pretty cheap. Well, all expansion mats are going to be very expensive when the expansion first launches, but relatively speaking, it's like, I haven't done the exact numbers, but I think like 10-ish Ghost Iron bars to get up to 540, maybe a little bit more, depending, because you will craft a few Ghost Iron bolts and explosive powder, and they're green recipes, so they might give you a skill point, they might not, and then you can craft Land Sharks, which will give you, I believe it's 3 skill points per craft, so you can use those to get up to 550 skill, and if you do that, this is obviously optional. A lot of people won't want to bother with this, especially if they don't want to invest the gold. But considering I timed it, I can, in under like a minute or two, I can blast out all the skill points up to 540. And at that point, as long as sometime in between, or in the leveling process, I manage to get enough ore on my alt to craft like 10-ish Ghost Iron bars, I can send it over to this character, and I can get 550, and that is where all of the good tinkers are. 550 is that breakpoint. So that is where you get the upgraded Synapse Rings, which, not that big of a deal. It's like a bit more primary stat, but, it'll improve your leveling speed. But the big one is you can unlock Goblin Glider. And Goblin Glider is really, really, really good. It's only a cloak enchant in MoP Classic. You can't get the Goblin Glider kits. Those were added in WoD. So you need to be engineering. You need to be 550 to get that. But once you have Goblin Glider, oh boy, that thing is actually faster than a flying mount. So there's going to be multiple situations while leveling where if you just jump off a cliff and pop a Goblin Glider, it is extremely fast. It is... I don't know exactly how much time it'll save you over the course of the leveling process, but it definitely does save time. It's also just really fun, so why wouldn't you use it? And especially, the reason why I bring this up in addition to the Gnomish Gravity Well is because this lifts you into the air. You can just imagine, right? If I want a Goblin Glider further, I can bounce myself higher into the air, get some distance upwards, and then at the peak of it, I don't know why it like lagged out there a little bit, but right before it's about to run out, boom, slam the Goblin Glider, and you're using it in midair. You get a bit more distance. Pretty nice. So that is going to be very strong. I am going to try and do that on launch. I don't know exactly if I'll be able to pull it off or not, but I figure, yeah, it's worth a shot. May as well. And you're going to have to, well, presumably level engineering eventually, if that's your goal, so that can be pretty handy. I think that I've covered most of the prep stuff that I've done. I don't think I've left anything out. I do have a bunch of Darkmoon game prizes over here, which, it's kind of weird. I don't know why they're sitting in my inventory. Like, I specifically, before I started this video, I made sure that I cleaned out my inventory, so only, like, the really important stuff was in here, and, I'm just, like, I'm so silly. I left this just random, useless item, just, in my bags. Why would I do that? That's crazy. Completely unrelated, by the way, nothing to do with what I was just saying, but did you guys know that Blizzard a lot of times watches my videos? I know for a fact that sometimes if I make videos talking about like a really cool trick that I found, something especially very game-breaking, they will often patch it and watch my videos, and I have to live with that fact of if I talk about something really, really especially cool in one of these things, yeah, I might get nuked from orbit. So, just random thought, right? I don't know why I'm bringing that up, but yeah. Let's I mean, I haven't really talked about anything super duper game breaking that would definitely get fixed if Blizzard knew about it, right? So just a random thing. In other also completely unrelated news, did you know that you can ride the carousel? And this carousel buff that gives you 10% experience, this one does not go away if you log out. This is, I would imagine, common knowledge for anybody, especially if you play retail. This is pretty standard practice. You want to get this buff stacked up to 1 hour, and then right before the expansion launch, right before Darkmoon Fair ends, because Darkmoon Fair is going to end in a few hours at the time of doing this. You can't benefit from this, oh well. It's not that big of a deal. It's only 1 hour, right? But every little bit counts. And you can log out at your desired place and start the expansion with 10% more XP. This is especially nice in conjunction with pre-quests, because obviously you're getting more value of every single one of those. And speaking of which, general launch tips. So, I've already kind of talked about a little bit in regards to what I recommend doing for the pre-quests. Like I said, there's some that you will want to turn in immediately, and there's some that you will want to turn in later. Now, when it comes to what you do first, I think it depends on how you plan to level from 85 to 86. And this will depend on every single person. I can tell you that personally, I am planning on mostly dungeon spamming to get from 85 to 86. And dungeons are not really good. I've seen some people, I mean, everybody's going to always recommend a shit leveling route in some of their guides, but a lot of people just love to recommend dungeon spamming as a general way to level. And I can tell you, and this will be in the guide, that it is not a effective way to level throughout the entirety of MoP. I did mention that obviously you will want to do the one-time dungeon quests. A single run with those big chunks of experience is worth it, as always, if you can get it, which may be a little hard, which is where, the Darkmoon Dragons come in. Even if you don't have these, by the way, it is still worth queuing for a dungeon, eating the 30-minute deserter buff, and then just doing quests for 30 minutes and trying again. That is still worth doing, just to put that out there. But you don't really want to spam dungeons just because the value of experience that you get is really low, and a lot of the dungeons are not really good. The two best dungeons that you can spam are actually the first two, Jade Serpent and Stormstout Brewery. Those are, relative to the fastest dungeons that we've ever seen in retail, not the best ever, but they are definitely two of the fastest MoP dungeons, and out of the ones that are accessible while leveling, they are the fastest. Like Scarlet Halls and Scarlet Monastery are pretty good, but obviously you can't do them while leveling. They are low level and then heroic only. So it is nice that at 85 we have two really good ones. Jade Serpent's a little bit weird to speedrun, but if you have an optimized group, you can cut down a lot of time by 50-50ing it. And then Stormstout is a little bit annoying with some of the roleplay, but there is a lot of mob kill experience, and it's still relatively short, so it's not that bad. Shadowpan Monastery kind of sucks. Still worth doing for quests, but yeah. Mogashan Palace also kind of sucks. There's a lot of roleplay. It's just a fairly long dungeon. Not a big fan of it. And Gate of the Setting Sun is decent, but you're not going to get it until, I think, 88. And if you're leveling really quickly, it might be actually really tough to find people running Gate of the Setting Sun. You'll have to just get very lucky, because most random dungeons you'll be put into will be the lower level ones, because people will not be 88 at that point. So if you're leveling slowly and you're just looking for general tips, you can probably get a clear of it for quests, but if you're watching this video, I'd imagine you're like me and you're going to be leveling on launch, so just keep in mind, it's going to be very difficult to get into those 88 dungeons and get the one-time clears. Something to keep in mind. But out of those, I think you get, Siege of Nizhao Temple and Setting Sun. Nizhao Temple is kind of shit. I'd say it's probably still worth doing for quests, but that's definitely an iffy one. And Gate of the Setting Sun is definitely worth doing for quests, and it's not that bad, but it's definitely still not spam-worthy. So overall, dungeon spamming is not super effective, but the best two dungeons are right at the start. So 85 to 86 is the best level to dungeon spam. And although what I will recommend in my guide is a mixture of Jade Forest questing and treasures and dungeon spam, you kind of do dungeon spam at the very end to just get the last bit of experience you need. It is not necessarily practical to quest in Jade Forest on launch day. It's just kind of a shitty zone in general. It is by far the worst of the MoP zones. Krasarong is kind of maybe a little bit worse, but also Krasarong is more of a big subzoned Valley of the Four Winds, and you can pick and choose which quest hubs you do in there. Some of them are solid, so I would actually say Jade Forest is worse, because Jade Forest, as a whole, is really, really, really slow. Some people like the quest there. They think it's fun, and, that's cool. But in terms of speed leveling, oh my god, Jade Forest fucking sucks. It's really bad. And the biggest problem with Jade Forest for launch day is every single first zone in any expansion is going to be super bottlenecky. Like Hygel, for instance, is a very good leveling zone, or at least an above average leveling zone, and I still avoided that on launch because any zone is going to be rough to quest in when every single person is sniping your objectives. But Jade Forest is one of the most notorious bottlenecky questing zones ever created. It's like maybe second only to the Maw in Shadowlands, and yeah, probably only second to the Maw in Shadowlands. It's bad. For a first zone, the initial questline is extremely brutal. I thought about, showing you the stuff that I did on MoP Remix, because that would give you a good idea of what it's like on launch. But just take my word for it that when I tested this during MoP Remix, which at this point I still had a ton of experience on doing all the routing and stuff like that, and it's still recent, right? So I think a lot of people have said, oh, Jade Forest won't be as bad because they remember back when MoP first launched, there were massive issues with the questline, and Blizzard did hotfix those issues, but the inherent design of the quest is still terrible, which is demonstrated by the bottlenecks that we faced in MoP Remix, where despite knowing exactly what to do and being one of the first people to reach it, it took me 3 minutes to get through the very first quest, just because it's so difficult to actually get tags on all the mobs, because you're in, you start off on, at least for Horde, on an airship, and you have to jump into a Gatling gun and shoot a bunch of stuff, and the way that that quest is designed is just, it's a fucking nightmare. So, I will not be touching Jade Forest at all. And especially if you are on a high pop server, which I will not be leveling on a high pop server, but if you are, good luck getting anything done in that zone. It's going to take you hours to get to level 86. A really, really, really long time. It's going to be brutal. But if you really don't want to spam dungeons, then it should go without saying that you need to start in Jade Forest ASAP. You cannot do all of this pre-quest stuff early on. So, brings me to my main point there. If your goal is to still do Jade Forest, despite my warnings, I would start in this area by Garrosh for Horde, and Alliance will start in the Varian Rin Keep in Stormwind, so over here, Stormwind Keep. That way, you can immediately pick up that quest, you can immediately get to the ship, and you can get that done. If you are really quick about that, maybe you can pull ahead of the pack, and the only reason why I say this might be worth it is because the initial however many quests of Jade Forest, in a vacuum, are not bad. The section of quests, at least for Horde and Alliance, have very similar stuff, where you destroy your enemy faction's base, you run around, you blow up stockpiles, you kill enemies, then you go help the Pandaren at the local village, and then Alliance attack a Horde fort, Horde attack an Alliance airstrip or something like that. Those quests are actually pretty good. There's decent density, the objectives aren't really hard to complete, it's overall not that bad. It's a nightmare, a lot of them, even beyond that initial quest if there's high competition, because there's a lot of specific objects you need to grab off the ground, or specific named NPCs that you need to kill. So there's going to be groups of 5 just camping in one spot, trying to kill one NPC, and then you need to do that 4 times. So it's going to be really, 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 really bad. But obviously, if you're the first person to get there and you snipe all 4 NPCs really quickly, it's a pretty fast quest. It's just very difficult to do with other people there. So, in a vacuum, for speedrunning, in the long term, whenever I'm doing, efficient 85 to 90 speedruns, midway through the expansion, just to get, the fastest possible time, I will show that, yeah, early Jade Forest, not bad. The other nice thing is that you still need to go to Jade Forest at some point. You need to, well, you don't need to unlock the teleporter, but you need to get to Pandaria, and unless you're a monk and you can teleport to Peak of Serenity, which still is kind of isolated, and it's not a good starting point, because you'll be way off in the middle of nowhere, and you have to get to Valley of the Four Winds for level 86. You will want to get to Jade Forest, and can I bring up Pandaria in the map? I can, cool. So, if we go to the Jade Forest, we can see, for Horde, you're going to start over here, and you're going to work your way down south until you get to Valley, which, yeah, this is the first hub. It's not letting me click on it, but I believe the bridge is somewhere over here. Oh, no, this is the place. The bridge is here at this river crossing. So Horde works their way down here. If you're doing the quest line, you'll eventually get brought to the Hosen camp here, and you'll just be able to easily head down to the bridge, enter Valley. But there's a lot of good treasures. You can see on my map, Lucky Pandaren Coin, Hosen's Speech, I don't know what this one is. I think this is a Lore Walker's thing, yeah. But Ancient Pandaren Teapot, Pandaren Ritual Stone, there's Chest of Supplies. These are all the treasures. That's, oh yeah, that's one of the rare ones. Yes, these are Lore Walker items, and these are rare ones. But these 4 objects, Coin, Teapot, Ritual Stone, and Chest of Supplies, are all really good experience. It's like more than a quest, I forget the exact number, but you will want to grab these, even if you're skipping Jade Forest. You'll enter here, and you'll run down south, grab this, grab this, grab this, grab Chest of Supplies, and then you'll go to Valley of the Four Winds, and you'll start the quest line over here. So, you're going to want to get there at some point. If you start questing in Jade Forest, you end up saving a little bit of time indirectly by already having the flight paths and stuff unlocked, and you can like set your Hearthstone here, and then teleport back there after you're done with whatever it is you're doing. Alliance have it a little bit rough in Jade Forest, because the only one they have is, yeah, Offering of Remembrance, and that is like the only treasure they really can access. They could technically go north for Chest of Supplies, whereas Horde has a very clean route, boom, 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 Valley. Alliance has this thing, which I think actually gives less experience than a regular treasure, though don't quote me on that, I'm not 100% sure on the numbers, and then they head up to Valley. They don't really get any of this stuff, so Horde has it way better in Jade Forest. Unlucky for Alliance. After that, it's all the same, right? Technically, Alliance could grab this. It's just not worth the time it takes to travel all the way up there. And then Valley obviously has a lot of treasures. Of course, I'll discuss all that in my guide. There's like the boat building instructions. If you can grab that, Sarok Stone Tablet, blah, 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 blah. You get the idea. It's, you know, if you've played Pandaria before, you know how that stuff works. But the reason I say that is just you need to weigh your options. You need to decide, am I going to dungeon spam? Am I going to do this? Another thing that I've seen a lot of people bring up, should have not closed my Pandaria map, is there's rare mobs. So we have Cracklefang, we have Craxus, there's Panda Rare on the border here, which I guess isn't displayed. Yeah, there's a bunch of rares here. Is it? I think it might be missing 1 or 2. Or maybe I'm confusing it. Either way, there's a lot of rare mobs. Rare mobs are very good experience, if you can find them. If you're on a server like Faralina, Pagel, Mankrik, good fucking luck. So, I will probably make, like, a small note in my video guide of, like, hey, if you can find a rare mob, obviously kill it. They're very good. The other thing is they give really good items. Some of them are BOEs, and you can sell them for shitloads of gold on launch. Others are toys that are really useful. Rares are fantastic in Pandaria, but again, good luck finding any. So, there's lots of different ways that you could theoretically level through here. There's like some potential mob grinding spots that, again, are all going to be camped, and I don't even necessarily think they're better than just raw dungeon spamming, at least for this level. But yeah, Jade Forest it's just a fucking nightmare. When I say Jade Forest, I mean, I guess, 85 to 86 is a nightmare in general. Jade Forest is one of the big reasons it's a nightmare, but I recommend dungeon spamming and just skipping this entirely. I'm just going straight to Valley of the Four Winds, and this zone I really like. I like Valley. Kunlai is my favorite of the Panda zones. Really efficient quest here. And then obviously Townline Dreadwaste, you basically just 100% the zone. Not much to say. The only hub in Dreadwaste you ignore is the one down south. But, well, obviously that will all be covered in my actual video guide. The last thing that I'll say, in terms of how you route prequests into that, obviously, like I said, if you are doing Jade Forest stuff, it's going to be a little bit awkward because you're going to have to get to Jade Forest ASAP, and that means you'll need to start in your keep and do the intro quest and try to get a head start. I would honestly say that if you fail to get ahead, and you're like, just 100% confident of, oh, I'm fucked, I'm never going to get caught up at this point, I've gotten bottlenecked, just do dungeons, give up. Don't try to quest in Jade Forest, but if you get a head start, keep going for a while. Jade Forest is pretty good. And if you do get that head start, hypothetically, then I would say once you do all of those good early quests, and you get to the Lorewalker Cho stuff, stop questing in Jade Forest, just like put a bookmark there, and then go teleport to, if you have the wormhole generator, do Wintergrasp first, get that stuff turned in, then take your tabard, or just teleport to Orgrimmar with a Potion of Deep Home, turn in your Tolbarad stuff, and then see how close you are. If you're at that point, like, 80% of the way there, do some dungeons, I would say, and get those one-time dungeon quests, then head to Valley. If you are planning to do what I'm going to be doing and just spamming dungeons non-stop, then all that matters is that you get to the continent. And actually entering Pandaria itself if you're not trying to do the quests, is not that hard. The one weird thing, I will just give you a heads up, I don't exactly know how it works for Alliance, but I think it is the same. But you both start on an airship, and Alliance, I think it's not a big deal because your airship is actually above the water, so you can jump off the airship the moment you get in and land in the water. Horde doesn't have that luxury. It's a pretty long fall. I'm pretty sure Pandaren can just live it naturally, so if you're a panda, good shit, just jump off and you're good to go. Anyone else will need to have some sort of slow fall or way to survive. If you have, like, Heroic Leap, you can leap to the ground. What I'm going to be doing is obviously, like, Gnomish Gravity Well, right? I'll jump off Gravity Well before I hit the ground. Parachute, there's a bunch of things that you can do. But do note, because this buff expires on death, right? So it's not as simple as, oh, I'm just going to go splat and then res and then continue along with my questing process. You cannot do that. You will lose all your buffs, and that really hurts at the very start. So you need some way to survive a fall. It is kind of important. Because normally, in the quests, you either Alliance take a parachute and Horde grapple down to the ground, so you don't need to do that for traditional questing. But if you are doing this later, like I'm doing, and you're going in, skipping the quest line, heading straight to Valley, you will not want to do that initial quest, because it's not as simple as just, oh, unlock the ability to grapple down. You would need to do the, like, shoot a bunch of stuff quest, which is the really bad bottleneck one, so you don't want to do that. Instead, you're just going to jump off the airship, fall to the ground. So keep that in mind, right? Very, very, very important. And once you get to Pandaria, actually, I think I screwed up the order a little bit. I got ahead of myself. If you're spamming dungeons, you don't need to enter Pandaria, is I guess what I was trying to say. You will need the slow fall, but I am personally going to start in Wintergrasp, and one of the reasons why I think it's important to start in Wintergrasp is because Wintergrasp, keep in mind, is every 3 hours. And Blizzard has said that their planned uptime, I guess, for the servers is 6 p.m. Eastern. I think at 3 p.m. PST, 6 p.m. Eastern. Now, they sometimes launch it a little bit early. I don't remember what the exact time was for Cataclysm, but I think it was like about 5 minutes early. If it launches at exactly 6 p.m., Wintergrasp will have started, and you will not be able to turn in your quests. However, if the servers go live 5 minutes early and you're sitting in Wintergrasp, you can quickly turn in your quests, get the experience, and then fuck off. Otherwise, you won't be able to hand in any Wintergrasp stuff for 30 minutes after the servers go live. So, because of the time that they're planning to launch it, which is standard, this could be problematic, but there might be a small window, which is why I would recommend starting there, just in case. And then, also, you don't need to start in Tol Barad because you have the teleport. So what I will probably do is I will start in Wintergrasp. I will get that. I will teleport to Tol Barad. I will do that. And I especially want to do all of that ASAP before even starting a dungeon, because obviously if something terribly goes wrong in a dungeon and I die, and I'm the tank, right? So even though Brewmaster is basically unkillable, you never know. I might be super aggressive and my healer is, like, asleep, as he sometimes does, and he might let me die, and then I would lose my buff, and that would really suck. So I'm going to turn in all this stuff ASAP. I'm not going to turn in the fishing and cooking dailies, as I said, and I'm not going to turn in my Peak of Serenity daily. I'm not going to have the pet battle dailies. Like, I kind of already said, I'm going to do some janky stuff there, but if I did have them, I would save them until level 89. But I would do all that turn-in stuff, and then I would immediately start queuing for dungeons. And then as I wait for the dungeon queue, obviously, I have a 5-stack that I'm planning on running with my guild, but if you are just queuing randomly, then I would honestly say probably put yourself in queue the moment you can, because you might not get an immediate pop. And if it pops before you're ready, just decline it and re-queue. But then I'm going to immediately queue. I'm going to head over, start the questline, get to Jade Forest as quickly as I can, and then just in between dungeon queues, you want to be moving south. Just get to Jade Forest, get to Pandaria, and like I said, if you're Horde, jump off, survive the fall, and just start moving south. Get the Pandaren coin, get the teapot, get the ritual stone, get the chest of supplies. Keep in mind, these are shared things. Anybody can get them. There are things like Woden's Mantage Shaker or Shanker, whatever, and there's like a bunch in Dread Waste that are like shared cooldown things that only one person can get, like every 8 hours. These, I think, have like a very short respawn, like 1 minute, so you might see a group of people sitting here waiting. I don't know for sure exactly how long it is, but you should be able to reliably get all of these without too much of a wait time. But it helps to rush for them early. And then one of the nice things that you could do, if you want to, in between dungeon queues, is just look for all of these rares. So, like, Ick the Ferocious is often like some little corner of the zone, and none of the quest lines are really going to direct you around here. But if people are doing the regular quests down here as Alliance or up here in Horde, they're not going to get this guy, so you can run there early, try and kill him. There's another rare... I don't know what this one is, but there's one that's like a little bit north of Temple of the Jade Serpent. There's this panda guy. This one Alliance players will encounter pretty early. Whatever add-on I have, the locations are correct, but the names of the NPCs are completely wrong. Because this is a Mogu rare. This is a Yongle rare that patrols like the little area over here. So yeah, I don't know what my add-ons are out of date. But the general locations are the same. There's a stealthed manted guy up on this hill over here. So in between dungeon queues, you can run around, kill them. If you're not planning on questing anyways, it might be worth doing. Now, Questy shows that there's quests for me to pick up in Dawn's Blossom. I don't know if I can, because the thing with Questy is they've said before that the quest data that they used to use back in the day is no longer fully accurate, and some stuff they'll show on here, like I can tell you for a fact, all of these quests, you need to do the entire chain to unlock them all. I'm fairly certain that that applies to everything in Dawn's Blossom as well. There might be like one random quest that you can do, so that's maybe a possibility. Run over there. Just any quest that isn't locked behind prereqs, grab it, complete it in between dungeon queues, but generally speaking, you're going to want to do as much in here as you can in terms of rares and treasures, and then once you're about to hit 86, work your way up to Valley, and then make sure the moment you hit 86, exit dungeons, stop doing them, get a head start in Valley of the Four Winds, because you want to cement your lead at that point. And you want to just start questing, get to all the really good, efficient quest hubs before other people do. I clicked the wrong zone, but you get the idea. And then get to Kunlai Summit, etc., etc. As it always goes with launch day stuff, you can snowball it if you get an early head start. That helps out a lot. Yeah, we've hit the 1 hour mark, so, you know, I've yapped for a sufficient amount of time. I think I've kind of covered everything super important. I guess, yeah, last thing I'll show, it's not really super important, but, you know, these are the glyphs that I'm going to be using. I think I'll probably take off Zen Meditation and run something else. I'm leveling as Brewmaster. These are my talents. This one is flexible, but I generally like these talents. I'll probably switch to Chi Burst for leveling, because Chi Burst is really good. AoE if you know how to use it properly, but definitely use Tiger Celeste as a monk. Pretty straightforward stuff. Not going to talk extensively about Brewmaster in this video, but I figure somebody might leave a YouTube comment asking that, so I'll just quickly show it at the end. But I guess on that note, if you have anything that you're still curious about that I just didn't cover in this video, or maybe it's like I have an item on screen here that I just forgot to talk about, let me know. I'll keep checking the comments and try to answer everything that I possibly can. I hope that this 1 hour video was of some use to you, and best of luck on launch day, and hopefully when my leveling guide is finally done in 24-ish hours, you will find that helpful as well. But yeah, that's it. See ya.